Besides the changes to the meal components, there are also additional changes to the meal pattern that may affect the operation of CACFP for sponsors and providers. We will go over requirements related to water, deep fat frying, rewards and punishments, and family-style meal service. After we go over the additional meal pattern requirements, we will also review a sample menu. Since May 2011, USDA's Food and Nutrition Services has required water to be available to participants upon request throughout the day. The 2015 to 2020 Dietary Guidelines for Americans recommends that water be consumed daily, but did not establish a daily minimum intake for water consumption. Drinking plenty of water is important to the hydration and health of children and adults. Starting October 1, 2017, there is now an additional requirement that water must be offered throughout the day to children, as most CACFP participants are very young and may not be able to or know how to request water themselves. These requirements do not apply to adult daycare centers. However, it is recommended that water is offered and made available throughout the day to all participants. As a reminder, water is not a part of a reimbursable meal, and water may not be served in place of milk. Water is not required to be offered alongside milk at meals or snacks, although sponsors and provider staff may choose to do so. The updated CACFP meal pattern requirements prohibit deep fat frying as a way to prepare meals on site. USDA defines deep fat frying as foods submerged in hot oil or other fat. Not only can deep fat frying be dangerous, but the consumption of too many deep fat fried foods may contribute to chronic illnesses. While preparing food by deep fat frying is prohibited, sponsors and providers may purchase other approved methods of fried foods from commercial manufacturers, including pre-fried, flash fried, this is when food is fried briefly at a very high temperature, par-fried, also known as blanching, which involves partially frying the food but not browning it. It must be cooked fully prior to serving, and deep fat fried. When reheating fried food items, the sponsor or provider may not deep fry, but can choose to bake or pan fry before serving. The recommended best practice is to limit pre-fried foods to 1 serving per week or less. The new meal pattern prohibits the use of food and beverage as a form of reward and punishment. When food and beverage is used as part of a reward and punishment system, negative effects on development and socialization can occur. Rewards with treats may lead to cavities and weight gain. Withholding foods or forcing foods as a punishment, however, may cause overeating and anxiety at meals. For sponsors and providers who want to serve family style, all food components for a reimbursable meal must be placed on the table in communal serving bowls and platters with sufficient portions for all participants to get the minimum portion sizes. If staff is also taking part in the meal, additional food portions will be required. The food components cannot be located in the room and moved to the table when requested. All required food components must be served on the table for the meals to be reimbursable. Participants must be allowed to serve the food components themselves unless they are physically unable to. Any component that is served by staff must be provided in the full portion size. Now that you have learned about the new meal pattern, including the additional requirements, here's your chance to start thinking about how you're going to incorporate these changes into your own menu. Here's a series of questions to pull together some of the concepts we learned in these videos. Take a look at this menu. We'll be reviewing this menu from May 3rd for the next series of questions. For our first question, take a look at the fluid milk component in this menu from May 3rd. Does this menu meet the CACFP meal pattern requirements for the milk component? Yes or no? No, it doesn't meet the requirements for the milk component. You would need to add the fat percentage of milk served. The milk fat percentage served is dependent on the age groups that are being served. If you are serving children 2 years old and older, 1% or non-fat milk may be served. Remember that any flavored milk must be listed as well. In this case, check with your kitchen and make sure 1% milk is available before listing it on the menu. Milk is required at breakfast and lunch for the child meal pattern. You do not need to serve milk at snacks. Only 2 components are required for snacks, and sponsors can choose which 2 components to serve. Now, look at the meat alternate component. Does the menu listed meet the CACFP meal pattern requirements for the meat alternate component? No, the menu does not meet the requirements for the meat alternate component. In order for the menu to meet the meat alternate component, the tofu cannot be blended. Tofu must be served in an easily recognizable form and cannot be blended in a smoothie or soup. Meat alternates are now allowed for breakfast in place of the grains component up to 3 times a week, and smoothies are allowed. In this case, since blended tofu is not allowed, an alternative would be to add yogurt as the meat alternate in the smoothie instead. Remember that any yogurt served must meet sugar limit requirements and must be listed on the menu with both the brand and flavor of the yogurt. Save the nutrition facts label and front packaging for all yogurts served. Remember to also add an HM next to your meatballs to show that it is homemade. A recipe should be kept for all homemade combination food items. Let's look at the fruits and vegetables components. Does this menu meet the CACFP meal pattern requirements for the fruits component and the vegetable component? No, it doesn't meet the requirements for the fruits component or the vegetable component. This is because juice is only allowed once per day. Fruit juice is being served at every meal and snack. Peaches that are blended in a smoothie is also considered to be fruit juice. In addition, apple juice is served for lunch and orange juice for snack. An option would be to not serve the smoothie for breakfast and instead replace it with canned peaches and yogurt with milk on the side. Then for lunch, serve apple slices instead of apple juice. This way, the orange juice at snack will be the only juice served that day. Now, let's look at the final meal component, the grains component. Does the menu meet the CACFP meal pattern requirement for the grains component? No, it doesn't meet the requirement for the grains component. There are 2 reasons. The first is that one of the grains served for the day should be whole grain rich, and this whole grain rich item must be listed on the working menu. In this case, check the grain items you're serving, and if the pasta served is a whole grain rich pasta, then list WGR next to the pasta. All whole grain rich items must be listed on the menu, and supporting documentation for the whole grain rich item must be saved. Also, cinnamon rolls which are being served for snack are considered to be a grain-based dessert and are not reimbursable. All items listed in red on Exhibit A will be considered grain-based desserts. Check with Exhibit A for alternative grain ideas such as whole grain toast with cinnamon and butter or graham crackers. In addition, for snack, any 2 components may be served, and sponsors and providers may replace grain-based desserts with other food components such as vegetables or meat alternates. For example, a healthy 2-component snack can include bell pepper slices with a yogurt dip. Here is your final creditable menu with meals and snacks that will be fully reimbursable. For breakfast, the smoothie has been replaced with a yogurt, 1% milk, and canned peaches. Remember that the flavor and brand of yogurt that is served should be listed on the menu. In addition, nutrition labels should be kept for all yogurts served. For lunch, the pasta has been amended to show that it's a whole grain-rich pasta by writing in WGR. This will meet the once per day whole grain-rich requirement. Your meatballs have HM next to them showing that it's homemade and a recipe is on file for the item. Celery sticks, apple slices, and 1% milk round out your lunch. Finally, for snack, the menu has kept orange juice as the one juice that is allowed per day. Cinnamon rolls has been switched out for the creditable and more cost-effective graham crackers. All working menus should be saved to support your monthly meal claims, along with all nutrition labels, packages, recipes, CN labels, and product formulation statements that will be used to credit the food components served. ODE CNP has a sample menu template that was developed. This is available on the ODE CNP CACFP webpage. Sponsors can choose to use this template or develop their own menu template. All menus must include the sponsor or site name, the month and year, components served, and the short form of the Civil Rights Statement. For more information on the new CACFP meal pattern, ODE has a page dedicated to the new meal pattern. The page has links to memos, ODE CNP developed handouts, USDA handouts, links to standardized recipes, and more. This concludes the main meal pattern training. In this 6-part training, we covered the new meal pattern and discussed steps to ensure that food items being served are nutritious. All the information in this training will outline good practices for promoting good health and wellness. All resources will be available on the ODE CNP public website. It is the sponsor and provider's responsibility to train staff at all sites on the new meal pattern. Sponsors with after-school, at-risk, or adult sites should view the offer versus serve training. Sponsors and providers with infants in care should view the infant meal pattern training. Thank you all for taking part in the general session of the new child and adult meal pattern for CACFP. We greatly appreciate the work that you do to fuel Oregon's future.